I never thought my life would turn into a soap opera, but here I am, Jessica, standing in my kitchen, heart racing, as Jake's voice echoes in my mind. Before we get into the details, let me know in the comments where you are watching this video from. My husband Eric is always away on business trips, leaving me alone in our sprawling suburban home with its pristine white walls and 2 quiet nights. At first, Jake, Eric's best friend since college, was just a convenient helper, fixing a leaky faucet, mowing the lawn, checking in on me. He's charming, with that easy smile and those deep brown eyes that seem to see right through me. But lately, something shifted. His touches linger a little too long when he hands me a tool. His gaze holds mine a beat too late. I tell myself it's nothing, that I'm imagining things, but deep down I know better. It happened last Tuesday. I was carrying a box of old photo albums up the stairs, my arms trembling under the weight, when my foot slipped. Time slowed as I felt myself falling, the hardwood rushing up to meet me. But then, strong hands grabbed me, pulling me back. It was Jake. His arms wrapped around my waist, steadying me, and for a moment, we were frozen there, my back pressed against his chest, our breathing synchronized. Our faces were inches apart, his breath warm against my cheek. "Say you don't want this, and I'll walk away," he whispered, his voice low and urgent. I opened my mouth to protest, to push him away, but the words caught in my throat. I didn't say no. And that silence? It changed everything. Now, I'm pacing the kitchen, the clock ticking toward midnight, Eric's still gone, and Jake's words looping in my head. I should feel guilty, ashamed, but instead, there's this electric thrill, this secret I'm carrying like a live wire. I tell myself it's just a moment of weakness, that it won't happen again. But the next day, when Jake shows up to fix the garage door, I can feel the tension crackling between us, thick as summer heat. He doesn't mention what happened, but his eyes say it all. And I don't stop him when he steps closer, when his hand brushes mine as he hands me a screwdriver. I'm playing with fire, and I know it. The real kicker comes a week later. Eric calls, his voice crackling over the phone from some hotel in Chicago, saying he's extending his trip another week. "Miss you, Jess," he says, and I feel a pang of something, guilt, maybe, or fear. But as soon as I hang up, my phone buzzes with a text from Jake. "Can I come over? Need to talk." My heart leaps, and before I can second-guess myself, I text back, "Yes." When he arrives, it's not just talk. We're in the living room, the lights dim, and he's telling me how he's felt this way for years, how he's always envied Eric, how he can't stop thinking about me. And then he leans in, and I don't pull away. It's a kiss that feels like a storm breaking, and I'm swept away. But here's the twist. I'm not as sneaky as I think. A few days later, Eric comes home early, his suitcase rolling behind him, a strange look on his face. "We need to talk," he says, and my stomach drops. He doesn't yell, doesn't accuse. Instead, he shows me his phone, a screenshot of a text I sent Jake, something flirty, something incriminating. My blood runs cold. "I saw it on his phone when I borrowed it last month," Eric says quietly. "I've known for weeks." I'm stunned, speechless, but he's not done. "I want to know why, Jess. And I want to know if you're going to choose him." The room spins, and I realize this isn't just about me and Jake. It's a battleground, and Eric's playing a game I didn't even know we were in. I spend the next few days in a haze, avoiding Jake's calls, dodging Eric's questions. But then, late one night, Jake shows up at the door, frantic. "Eric knows," he says, his eyes wild. "He called me, said he's going to ruin us both unless we confess." My mind races. Ruin us how? Financially? Socially? I think of our friends, our neighbors, the life we've built. And then it hits me. Eric's not just hurt, he's angry, and he's plotting. I remember how calculating he can be, how he once dismantled a rival at work with a single email chain. Now, he's turned that same precision on us. The next morning, I find a letter slipped under the door. It's from Eric, but it's not addressed to me. It's a draft of a letter to our closest friends, detailing my betrayal with Jake, painting me as the villain, Jake as the opportunist. It's devastating, but at the bottom, there's a note. If you stop this now, I won't send it. But you have to end it with him, publicly, and beg for my forgiveness. My hands shake as I read it. This isn't just about love, it's about control, about power. And I realize I'm not just fighting for my marriage, I'm fighting for my life, as I know it. But I'm not ready to roll over. Late that night, I call Jake. We need a plan, I tell him, my voice steady despite the fear. We meet at a diner on the edge of town, far from prying eyes. Over coffee, we hatch a scheme. If Eric wants to play dirty, we'll play dirtier. I remember something Eric once let slip. His biggest fear isn't losing me, it's losing face. So, we decide to turn the tables. Jake will leak a story to a mutual friend, something vague but damning about Eric's own secrets, hints of shady business deals during his trips. Nothing violent, nothing explicit, just enough to make Eric squirm, to make him second-guess his attack. The plan works faster than I expect. Within days, whispers start circulating at the country club, at the office. Eric comes home pale, furious, demanding to know who's talking. Who did this, Jess? He snaps, but I play innocent, letting the doubt eat at him. It's my first taste of revenge, and it's bitter but exhilarating. But then Jake pulls me aside, his face grave. He's not done, he warns. I found out he's been tracking your phone, your emails. He knows we met at the diner. My stomach twists. This isn't just a game anymore, it's a war. Desperate, I dig through Eric's study, searching for leverage. In a locked drawer, I find old letters, emails printed out, proof of his own indiscretions years ago, before we were married. A woman named Lisa, a colleague from his first job, whose name I'd never heard. The letters are passionate, full of promises, and suddenly, I see Eric in a new light, not as the wronged husband, but as a hypocrite. Armed with this, I confront him. You think you're the only one who can keep secrets? I say, holding up the letters. His face goes white, and for the first time, I see fear in his eyes. The final blow comes at a neighborhood barbecue, where all our friends are gathered. Eric, still reeling from the rumors and my discovery, tries to corner me, to force a public reconciliation. But I've had enough. In front of everyone, I announce that I'm leaving, not for Jake, but for myself. I deserve better than lies and manipulation, I say, my voice clear despite the tears. Eric stumbles, speechless, as the crowd murmurs. Jake, standing nearby, nods silently, respecting my choice. It's not a happy ending, not yet, but it's mine. And as I walk away, I feel the weight lift, the chains of secrecy and shame falling away. Eric's revenge failed, and mine, quiet, devastating, succeeded. But the real victory? I'm free. The days after the barbecue are a blur of phone calls, hushed conversations, and the occasional glare from neighbors who don't know what to make of me. I'm Jessica, still reeling, still raw, but there's a strange clarity now, like I've shed a skin I didn't know I was wearing. Eric moved out temporarily, staying with his brother, and the house feels both emptier and lighter without his presence. I keep expecting guilt to crash over me, but instead, there's relief, mingled with a nagging fear of what comes next. The letters from Lisa are still tucked away in my desk, a silent trump card I haven't played yet, but I know they're there, a safety net if Eric decides to strike again. Jake calls me the next week, his voice cautious. You okay? He asks, and I can hear the weight of everything unspoken between us. I tell him I'm surviving, that I need space, and he respects it, though I can tell he's hurt. Part of me wonders if I made a mistake pushing him away, but another part knows I can't build anything new on the wreckage of what I've destroyed. Still, he leaves me voicemails, short, kind messages about how he's there if I need him, how he's sorry for the mess we've made. Each one tugs at me, but I delete them, trying to focus on rebuilding. Then, out of nowhere, a package arrives at my door. No return address, just my name scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside is a USB drive and a note. Watch this before you decide anything. My heart pounds as I plug it into my laptop, half expecting some damning evidence Eric's cooked up to use against me. Instead, it's a video of Eric and Lisa years ago in what looks like a hotel room. They're not doing anything explicit, just talking, but the intimacy is palpable, the kind of closeness that screams betrayal. The timestamp is from before we were married, but the implications are explosive. Eric's voice, smooth and confident, promises her the world, says he'll leave his then-girlfriend for her. My stomach churns. This isn't just a fling. This is a pattern. I confront Eric the next day at a neutral spot, a coffee shop downtown where no one knows us. He looks tired, defeated, but there's still that flicker of arrogance in his eyes. "What game are you playing now?" he snaps when I slide the USB across the table. I don't say a word, just let him watch the video on his phone. His face goes from confusion to shock to rage, but I'm ready for it. "You think you can blackmail me with this?" he hisses, but I see the cracks forming. "No," I say calmly, sipping my coffee. "I think you should leave me alone, or everyone we know will see this. Not just our friends, your boss, your clients, your family." It's a bluff, but it works. Eric's eyes narrow, but he doesn't argue. He knows I'm not the same Jessica he married, the one who'd cower and apologize. This is revenge, cold and calculated, and it feels like justice. He storms out, leaving his coffee untouched, and I sit there, trembling but triumphant. For the first time, I feel like I've taken back control, not just from him, but from the chaos we've all created. But the victory is short-lived. That night, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "You think you're safe? You have no idea what he's capable of." Chills run down my spine, and I can't shake the feeling that someone's watching me. I check the locks, pull the curtains tight, but sleep doesn't come. The next morning, I find my car tires slashed in the driveway, a clear message. Panic sets in, but so does resolve. If Eric, or whoever sent that text, thinks they can scare me back into submission, they're wrong. I call Jake, my voice shaking as I explain what's happened. He's at my door within the hour, his face a mix of concern and determination. "We need to end this," he says, and for once, I agree. Together, we piece together a plan. Jake has contacts from his days as a freelance journalist, people who can dig into Eric's past, find more dirt, create enough pressure to make him back off permanently. It's risky, but I'm tired of being the prey. I want to be the hunter. The turning point comes when Jake's contact uncovers emails between Eric and a shady business partner, hinting at embezzlement during his last big project. It's not just personal now, it's criminal. Armed with this, I draft an anonymous tip to Eric's company, knowing it'll trigger an investigation. It's not violence, not revenge in the traditional sense, but it's devastating in its own way. I imagine Eric's face when the auditors show up, the same way he imagined mine when he planned to expose me. The fallout is swift. Eric calls me, pleading, his voice breaking for the first time. "Please, Jess, call it off. I'll sign the divorce papers, I'll leave you alone. Just stop this." I hang up without a word, letting the silence speak for me. The next day, the news breaks. Eric's company is under scrutiny, and he's suspended pending an investigation. Our mutual friends are buzzing, speculating, but I stay silent, letting the storm do its work. In the end, I don't see Eric again. He moves out of state, his reputation in tatters, his career on life support. Jake and I part ways too, not out of anger, but mutual understanding that we both need to heal. I sell the house, buy a small apartment in a new town, and start over. The scars are there, the fear, the guilt, but so is a strange kind of peace. I've faced the darkest parts of myself and others, and I've survived. The revenge wasn't just against Eric, it was against the version of me who let fear dictate her life. Now I'm free, and that's the sweetest victory of all. Months pass, and the dust settles in ways I never imagined. I'm Jessica, now living in a cozy apartment in Seattle, far from the suburban sprawl and the memories of that white-walled house. The divorce papers are signed, the investigation into Eric's company drags on, and the whispers about me have faded to a dull hum. I've taken a new job at a local marketing firm, something low-key but challenging, and I'm starting to breathe again. But the past isn't done with me yet. One crisp autumn afternoon, as I'm walking home from work, I spot a familiar figure across the street, Jake. My heart stutters, a mix of nostalgia and nerves. He looks different, older maybe, but his smile is the same when he catches my eye and waves. We meet at a nearby cafe and over lattes. He tells me he's been following the news about Eric, making sure everything stays quiet on my end. "I just wanted to check on you," he says, his voice soft. There's no pressure, no expectation, just genuine concern, and it hits me how much I've missed that kind of connection. But as we talk, he mentions something that sends a chill down my spine. "I heard Eric's been talking to lawyers, trying to pin a leak on someone close to him. He's paranoid, Jess. He thinks it was you or me." My stomach twists. I thought I'd closed that chapter, but now it feels like the book's been reopened. I thank Jake for the heads up, and we part with a promise to stay in touch, but as I walk home, my mind races. If Eric's still out there, plotting, what else might he do? The slashed tires, the threatening text, it all floods back, and I realize I can't let my guard down. That night, I dig out the USB drive and the letters from Lisa, rereading them under the dim light of my lamp. There's more here, I think, hints of other secrets Eric buried deep. One letter mentions a safe deposit box and a key he kept hidden for emergencies. My pulse quickens. If there's leverage in there, something to ensure Eric never comes after me again, I have to find it. I call an old friend from college, Rachel, who's now a private investigator. She agrees to help, and together we start tracing Eric's movements, his financials, anything that might lead us to that box. The breakthrough comes 2 weeks later. Rachel finds a record of a safety deposit box at a bank in Portland, under a pseudonym Eric used years ago. We drive down together, nerves jangling, and when we open the box, it's like unlocking a Pandora's box of his past. Inside are documents, proof of offshore accounts, falsified contracts, and a journal detailing his manipulations, including entries about me, Jake, and even Lisa. But the most shocking find is a letter from Eric to himself, a twisted confession. "If I ever lose control, this will be my insurance. No one betrays me and walks away clean." I'm shaking as I read it, but Rachel's steady hand on my shoulder grounds me. "This isn't just about you, Jess," she says. "This could bring him down for good. We photocopy everything, leaving the originals in the box for now, and I know what I have to do. This isn't just revenge, it's justice for me, for Jake, for anyone else Eric's hurt." I draft an anonymous email to the FBI, attaching the evidence, and hit send. It's terrifying, liberating, and final. If Eric thought he could keep playing his games, he's about to learn he's out of moves. The fallout is slow but seismic. A week later, news breaks of a federal investigation into corporate fraud, and Eric's name is splashed across headlines. He's arrested at his new apartment, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. I watch it all unfold on my TV, a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow washing over me. He's not the man I married, not anymore, but seeing him fall doesn't bring the closure I expected. It's not about him now, it's about me, about rebuilding. Jake calls again, his voice a lifeline. "You did it, Jess," he says, and I can hear the pride in his tone. We meet up, this time for dinner, and it's different, less charged, more honest. He admits he's been seeing someone new, and I'm genuinely happy for him. For me, there's no rush. I'm learning to trust myself again, to trust that I can stand on my own. We part as friends, and I feel a weight lift, knowing I've closed that chapter for good. But the story doesn't end there. A month later, I receive a letter in the mail, postmarked from a prison. It's from Eric, handwritten, the edges smudged like he's been clutching it for days. "Jessica," it begins, "I know I have no right to ask, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Not for the arrest, That's on me, but for everything else, you were right to fight back. I hope you find peace. It's not forgiveness I'm after, but the letter shifts something in me. Maybe he's changed, maybe not, but I don't need to carry his shadow anymore. I burn the letter in my fireplace, watching the flames consume his words, and with it, the last of my anger. The apartment is quiet, but it's my quiet now, not his. I start therapy, join a book club, make new friends. Life isn't perfect. There are still nights when I wake up sweating, still moments when I check over my shoulder, but I'm healing. The revenge, the battles, they were necessary, but now it's time for something else. A future where I'm not defined by what I escaped, but by what I build. And build I do. I take up painting, something I abandoned years ago, and my canvases fill with bold colors, chaotic but beautiful, like my life has been. I date casually, nothing serious, but it's enough to know I'm ready to open my heart again on my terms. The scars are there, but they're mine, part of my story, and I wear them with a quiet strength I never knew I had. Eric's in prison, Jake's moved on, and I'm here, standing in the light, finally free. That's the hook, the twist, the revenge, not just against him, but for myself. And it's enough to keep me going, to keep me whole. As winter sets in, Seattle's gray skies mirror the calm that's finally settling over me. I'm Jessica, still adjusting to this new version of myself, but each day feels like a small victory. The book club I joined has become a lifeline. Women like me, each with their own stories of survival, laughter, and reinvention. We meet at a cozy cafe, swapping tales over mugs of chai, and for the first time in years, I feel part of something bigger than my own drama. But just when I think I've left the past behind, it creeps back in, subtle but insistent. One evening, as I'm sorting through old boxes in my storage unit, I find a small velvet pouch I don't remember packing. Inside is a key, plain, brass, with no label or note. My mind races back to the safe deposit box in Portland, to Eric's journal and the secrets it held. Could this be another piece of his puzzle? My heart pounds as I call Rachel, who's become more than a PI. She's a friend now. It might be nothing, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. But what if it's something? She agrees to meet me, and together we start digging again, this time with a cautious optimism. Our search leads us to a storage facility on the outskirts of town, a nondescript building with flickering fluorescent lights and a manager who barely looks up from his crossword. The key fits a locker, and when we open it, we're greeted by stacks of files, old photos, and a ledger filled with names and numbers. It's not just Eric's secrets, it's a web connecting him to other players, other schemes. There's a photo of him with a man I don't recognize, both smiling over what looks like a signed contract, but the date stamps are from after his arrest. My blood runs cold. Is he still pulling strings from behind bars? I show the ledger to Rachel, and her eyes widen. This could be bigger than we thought, she says. These names, some are high-profile. If Eric's still involved, he might have allies who aren't happy you exposed him. The weight of that sinks in, but so does a flicker of defiance. I'm not the same woman who cowered under Eric's control. I've fought too hard to let fear dictate my life again. We decide to take the evidence to a journalist friend of Rachel's, someone who can expose the network without tracing it back to me. It's a risk, but it's my final stand against the shadow Eric cast. The story breaks a month later, a front-page exposé titled The Corporate Conspiracy. It names names, details schemes, and hints at ongoing investigations. Eric's name is there, but so are others. Powerful men who, until now, thought they were untouchable. My phone buzzes with messages from old friends, neighbors, even Jake, all asking if I'm okay. I don't respond to most, but I call Jake. It's over, I tell him, and this time I mean it. He's proud, I can hear it, and we share a quiet moment of closure before hanging up. But the aftermath brings an unexpected twist. A week after the article, I receive a visit from a federal agent, Agent Carter, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and a clipboard. We need to talk about your husband, she says, and my stomach drops. She doesn't accuse me. Instead, she thanks me. Your tip, this safe deposit box. It gave us what we needed to crack this wide open. But we have reason to believe Eric's trying to pin everything on you, claiming coercion. My heart races, but Carter's next words steady me. We've got your back. He won't touch you. That night, I sit on my balcony, the city lights twinkling below, and I let the fear wash over me, then fade. Agent Carter's promise feels like armor, but more than that, it's validation. I didn't just survive, I changed the game. The revenge I sought wasn't just personal, it was systemic, a strike against the kind of power that thrives on silence and fear. I sleep better that night than I have in years, knowing I'm not just a victim or a pawn, but a force. Spring arrives, and with it, a sense of renewal. I finish a painting, a vibrant swirl of reds and golds, chaos giving way to light, and hang it in my living room. The book club throws me a small celebration for my new chapter, and I laugh, really laugh, for the first time in ages. But the past isn't done surprising me. One day, a letter arrives from Lisa, the woman from Eric's letters. She's tracked me down, not out of malice, but gratitude. Your courage inspired me to speak out, she writes. I'm testifying against him too. Thank you. Tears blur my vision as I read, but they're good tears, healing ones. Lisa and I meet for coffee, and her story mirrors mine in ways that both unsettle and unite us. We become unlikely allies, sharing strategies for moving forward, for rebuilding. She's stronger than I expected, and I see in her the reflection of the woman I've become. Together, we vow to keep fighting, not just for ourselves, but for anyone else caught in similar webs. The final twist comes in summer, when I get word that Eric's plea deal fell through. He's facing serious time, not just for fraud but for perjury, and the network he was part of is crumbling. Agent Carter calls to update me, her voice warm. You did more than you know, Jessica. This case is going to change things. I hang up, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion, but also pride. The revenge I sought wasn't just about destroying Eric, it was about reclaiming my power, my voice, my life. I take a solo trip to the coast, standing on a cliffside, the ocean roaring below. The wind whips my hair, and I close my eyes, letting go of the last remnants of fear and anger. Jake sends a postcard, just a simple thinking of you, and I smile, knowing he's found his peace too. Lisa and I stay in touch, a sisterhood forged in fire. And me? I'm painting again, dating again, living again. The story isn't a fairy tale. It's messy, real, but it's mine. The hook was the betrayal, the twists were the battles, and the revenge was my freedom. And that, I realize, is the ending worth waiting for. As summer fades into fall, the rhythm of my new life in Seattle feels almost normal, but I know better than to take it for granted. I'm Jessica, still navigating the echoes of my past, but now they're softer, like background music rather than a deafening storm. The book club has become my anchor, and my paintings, bold, vibrant, full of life, line the walls of my apartment, each one a testament to where I've been and where I'm going. But there's one last piece of the puzzle, one final thread to tie up, and it arrives unexpectedly on a crisp October morning. I'm at my desk, sketching ideas for a new project, when the doorbell rings. It's Agent Carter again, but this time she's not alone. Beside her is a woman I don't recognize, mid-40s, sharp suit, confident posture. Jessica, this is Detective Monroe, Carter says, her tone serious but not threatening. We need to discuss a development in Eric's case. My stomach tightens, but I invite them in, pouring coffee with hands that only slightly tremble.
Monroe wastes no time.
We've uncovered evidence that Eric wasn't working alone in his recent attempts to retaliate against you, she says, sliding a file across my coffee table. Inside are transcripts of phone calls, emails, and a grainy photo of a man I vaguely recognize from one of the storage locker files. This is Daniel Voss, a former associate of your husband's. He's been trying to track you down, possibly to silence you, or coerce you into dropping your involvement. My breath catches, but Monroe's next words are a lifeline. We've got him under surveillance, and we're confident he won't get near you. But we need your help to close this chapter for good. The room spins for a moment, but then I steady myself. This isn't fear, it's resolve. I've faced worse, survived more. What do you need? I ask, and Monroe outlines a plan. A controlled statement, recorded and monitored, where I'd confirm my role in exposing Eric without incriminating myself further. It's a risk, but it's also my chance to ensure Eric and his allies can never touch me again. I agree, and over the next week, we set it up: a sterile conference room, microphones, and a team of agents listening in. The recording session is surreal. I sit across from Monroe, my voice calm as I recount the safe deposit box, the ledger, the anonymous tip. I don't mention Jake or Lisa, protecting them as they've protected me, but I lay out enough to make it clear. Eric's empire of lies is finished. When it's over, Monroe shakes my hand, her grip firm. "You're stronger than you know, Jessica," she says, and I believe her. That night, I sleep deeply. The weight of impending danger finally lifted. But the real closure comes a month later, when a letter arrives from the prison. Not from Eric, but from the warden. It's a formal notice. Eric has been transferred to a maximum security facility, his appeals exhausted, his network dismantled. The letter includes a postscript. "Your courage has helped us clean up a lot of corruption. Thank you." I read it twice, then burn it in the fireplace, watching the flames dance as they consume the last remnant of his influence over me. With that, I feel a shift, a final release. I call Lisa, and we celebrate over video chat, raising glasses of wine to our survival. Jake sends a text. "Heard the news. You're incredible," and I smile, knowing he's out there, living his own story. The book club throws another gathering, this time at my place, and as we laugh and share stories, I realize I'm not just healing. I'm thriving. I finish my biggest painting yet, a sprawling canvas of a phoenix rising from ashes, its wings spread wide against a sunset sky. I title it Reborn, and when I hang it in my living room, it feels like a declaration. I start dating again. 2. Meeting a kind, funny graphic designer named Tom at a gallery opening. There's no rush, no pressure, just the promise of something new, built on trust and honesty. One evening, as I sit on my balcony watching the city lights, I think about everything. The betrayal, the battles, the revenge. It wasn't clean or easy, but it was mine. I didn't just fight Eric. I fought for myself, for the woman I wanted to become. The hook was the moment Jake caught me on the stairs, the twists were the secrets and schemes, and the revenge was my freedom, my voice, my life. Now, as the cool breeze brushes my face, I know I've won. Not just against him, but for me.